Welcome to the Empowered Meaning Coaching Podcast Series. I'm your host, Louise and Maurice. You know I love hearing from you. So in the comment section, make sure that you're sharing your experience. And if this material is resonating with you, make sure you're giving it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who might benefit from it. Let's continue. Extrovert versus introvert. Who's more confident? What do you think? Well, in episode 6, we are going to look at introverts and confidence. We're going to begin by unpacking that definition, the meaning of introvert, and look a little bit deeper than just the dictionary definition, although I will share that with you. And then we'll look at introverts and confidence, the research, that recent research that is available, and it will really give you some insight that will help you to understand that, especially if you're an introvert yourself or you work with introverts. And then we're going to look at introverts, their limiting beliefs. What is going on and what do they believe to be true about themselves and how they show up in their world. And then coaching introverts. Self-coaching for yourself or coaching other people. And then I will share with you where to find free coaching questions on my website. That PDF, no email address is required. It's free to download. All right, podcast. You have your listening ears on? All right, let us continue with the meaning of introvert. Here's some quick tip reminders. There's a lot of great information contained in this podcast. I don't want you to miss anything. So if you like to read as you listen to me, click on the CC to pull up the closed captions. This gear icon, when you click on it, this will pull up the settings. The playback speed is on normal. When you click on that, you can increase the speed to 2x, which will make this go quicker. Let's continue. Let's start by dissecting the meaning of introvert, beginning with what introvert means to you. When you think of the word introvert, what one word or phrase would you use to describe it? Keep that word in mind as I discuss the dictionary definition of introvert. From Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition of introvert is a person whose personality is characterized by introversion, a typically reserved or quiet person who tends to be introspective and enjoys spending time alone. To turn inward or in upon oneself. Now I'll have this dictionary definition on the PDF document that I have available for you. And toward the end of the podcast, I'll share with you exactly where to find that. But let's continue on looking at the character traits of an introvert versus an extrovert. And they're often opposite, but not mutually exclusive. And some of those common traits are that introverts are more reflective, introspective, and thoughtful, while extroverts are more expressive, outgoing, and spontaneous. Introverts are more reserved, passive, and quiet, while extroverts are more sociable, assertive, and cheerful. Introverts are more focused, analytical, and careful, while extroverts are more adventurous, creative, and impulsive. And introverts are more independent, self-reliant, and self-contained, while extroverts are more dependent, cooperative, and interactive. Introverts are more selective, loyal, and deep, while extroverts are more inclusive, friendly, and broad. Well, now that you know the dictionary definitions of introvert and some of the character traits that people who are introverts and extroverts have, how close was the dictionary definition to the one word or phrase that you used to describe introvert? Now, from the dictionary definition of introvert and the character traits of people who are introverts and extroverts, I want you to think of people you know who fit the description of introvert. As you listen to the research, It will help you gain insight and perspective. But before we get to that research, let's look deeper at the meaning of introvert, what it is, what it isn't, as well as some myths associated with it. And remember, an introvert is a person who prefers to focus on their own inner thoughts and feelings rather than on external sources of stimulation. Introverts tend to gain energy and recharge by spending time alone or with a few close friends, while they lose energy and feel drained by socializing in large groups or with unfamiliar people. Introverts are not the same as shy people who experience anxiety or discomfort in social situations. Introverts can enjoy socializing, but they have a different tolerance level for how much they can handle. Now, some common myths about introverts. Myth 1. Introverts are unfriendly or antisocial. This is not true, as introverts can be warm, kind, and interested in others. They just prefer to have deeper and more meaningful conversations with a few people rather than engaging in small talk with many strangers. Myth 2. Introverts are boring or have no fun. This is also false, as introverts can have a rich and diverse inner life, full of imagination, creativity, and curiosity. They can also enjoy fun activities such as reading, writing, playing games, watching movies, or pursuing hobbies, as long as they have enough time to recharge afterwards. Myth 3. Introverts are less intelligent or successful than extroverts. This is a misconception, as introverts can be very smart, talented, and accomplished in various fields. They may have different strengths and skills than extroverts, such as being more reflective, analytical, or innovative. Some famous introverts include Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, J.K. Rowling, and Barack Obama. Myth 4. Introverts are depressed or have low self-esteem. This is another myth, as introverts are not necessarily unhappy or insecure. They may have different emotional needs and expressions than extroverts, such as being more sensitive, reserved, or calm. Introverts can also experience positive emotions such as joy, gratitude, and love in their own way. Myth number 5, the final myth. Introverts can or should change to become more extroverted. This is a harmful and unrealistic expectation, as introversion is a natural and normal personality trait that is not a flaw or a weakness. Introverts can learn to adapt to different situations and environments, but they should not be forced to act against their true nature or deny their authentic self. All right, so we've looked at the dictionary definition of introvert, as well as some of the character traits of introverts and extroverts, and what introverts is and what introvert is not, as well as some of the myths. Now, what does the research say? Are extroverts more confident than introverts or vice versa? All right, let's review that research next. Introverts and confidence research. Introverts are formed in childhood partly by genetics and partly by environmental factors. Some studies suggest that introverts have a higher sensitivity to dopamine, a neurotransmitter that regulates arousal and reward, and that they may be born with a more active brain that gets easily overwhelmed by too much stimulation. Other studies indicate that introverts may develop their temperament through early experiences, such as parenting styles, peer interactions, and cultural influences. Introverts can form healthy ways of coping with their temperament, such as finding creative outlets, pursuing their passions, and building meaningful relationships with a few trusted people. However, introverts can also form unhealthy ways of coping, such as isolating themselves, suppressing their emotions, or conforming to social expectations that go against their nature. These distorted ways can impact their self-esteem, mental health, and well-being into adulthood. Some situations that can trigger people when they are introverts are being in loud, crowded, or chaotic environments that overstimulate their senses and drain their energy. Being put on the spot, especially in public or professional settings, that make them feel anxious, self-conscious, or unprepared. Having to engage in small talk, superficial conversations, or social niceties that bore them, exhaust them, or prevent them from expressing their true selves. The main fear that people experience when they try to hide they are introverts is the fear of rejection. They may worry that if they show their true personality, they will be judged, misunderstood, or excluded by others. They may also fear that they will miss out on opportunities, connections, or experiences if they don't act more extroverted. The belief that comes from that fear is that there is something wrong with being an introvert and that they need to change or adapt to fit in. They may believe that introversion is a weakness, a flaw, or a disadvantage, and that extroversion is the norm, the ideal, or the superior trait. The feelings they experience when they try to hide they are introverts are often negative, such as frustration, resentment, or anger at having to pretend or compromise their authenticity. Exhaustion, burnout, or fatigue from overextending themselves or ignoring their needs. Loneliness, emptiness, or sadness from feeling disconnected or misunderstood by others. Anxiety, stress, or nervousness from worrying about others' opinions or expectations. Guilt, shame, or regret from betraying themselves or missing out on their true potential. Now, the behaviors and or defense mechanisms that they use as protective measures when they try to hide they are introverts are often maladaptive, such as avoiding, escaping, or withdrawing from social situations or interactions that make them uncomfortable or unhappy. Conforming, pleasing, or accommodating to others' wishes or demands at the expense of their own. Rationalizing, minimizing, or denying their feelings or needs as unimportant or irrelevant. Compartmentalizing, suppressing, or hiding their emotions or thoughts from others or themselves. Overcompensating, overachieving, or overdoing to prove themselves to impress others. Now, introversion is not the same as lack of confidence. Introverts are people who prefer to focus on their inner thoughts and feelings rather than on external stimuli or social interactions. They tend to be more stimulated by internal processes such as reflection, creativity, and problem solving than by external ones such as noise, crowds, and excitement. This does not mean that they are shy, insecure, or afraid of social situations, but rather that they have different preferences and needs for socializing and recharging their energy. Introverts can be confident in their own way. Confidence is not a one-size-fits-all concept, but rather a subjective and situational feeling of self-efficacy and self-esteem. Introverts can be confident in their abilities, skills, and values, especially in areas that they are passionate about or have expertise in. They can also be confident in their social interactions as long as they are authentic, meaningful, and aligned with their personality and goals. Introverts can also develop confidence by leveraging their strengths, such as their observational skills, their listening skills, their critical thinking skills, and their writing skills. Introverts and extroverts may have different sources and expressions of confidence. While extroverts may derive confidence from external validation, such as praise, recognition, or social status, introverts may rely more on internal validation, such as self-awareness, self-acceptance, or personal growth. Similarly, while extroverts may express confidence through verbal communication, physical gestures, or assertive behavior, introverts may communicate confidence through nonverbal cues such as eye contact, posture, or tone of voice. Therefore, introverts and extroverts may have different ways of showing and perceiving confidence, which can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or misjudgments. Introverts and extroverts may have different levels and types of confidence depending on the situation and context. Introverts are not necessarily less confident than extroverts, but rather have different preferences and needs for socializing and recharging their battery. Introverts can be confident in their own way by focusing on their inner thoughts and feelings and by using their strengths and skills. Introverts and extroverts may also have different sources and expressions of confidence, which can affect how they interact and relate to each other. Therefore, it is important to recognize and appreciate the diversity and complexity of introversion and confidence, and to avoid stereotyping or labeling people based on their personality type. Remember, being an introvert does not mean lacking confidence. In fact, introverts have their own unique strengths and can build a solid foundation of self-assurance. Confidence is the belief in oneself, one's abilities, and one's worth. It is not dependent on external factors such as popularity, approval, or success, but rather on internal factors such as self-awareness, self-respect, and self-improvement. Some of the challenges that introverts may face in a society that tends to favor extroversion include feeling misunderstood, ignored, or overlooked by others who may not appreciate their quiet and thoughtful nature, feeling pressured, drained, or overwhelmed by too much socializing, noise, or stimulation, feeling insecure, inadequate, or inferior to others who may seem more confident, charismatic, or competent, feeling isolated, lonely, or disconnected from others who may not share their interests, values, or perspectives. Now, as we wrap up this confidence and introvert research, it's important to just take this in, because if you're working with people who are introverts and they come to you and say, oh, I want to be more of an extrovert because that's what's valued in our community, in our culture, in our family, and the organization. Understand that introverts bring a lot of strengths, a lot of gifts, talents, skills to the relationships, all relationships. And sometimes when they are misunderstood, then it's squashing their confidence. So just take this in. You might want to go back and re-listen to this research section. But again, it's
being shared with you so that it gives you context and understanding. That way you can really be a lot more authentic and compassionate so that you realize introverts and the way that they recharge. I said recharge many times because it's important to understand so that you don't take their actions and behaviors personally. You understand that they need that time for that introversion. They need to be able to go inward, and they might not want to always be socializing and going out. And so just think about this, and you may have to go back and re-listen to that. All right, so now that we've looked at the research, let's look at introverts and their limiting beliefs. Now, remember that limiting beliefs are thoughts or states of mind that you think are the absolute truth and stop you from doing certain things. These beliefs can be about yourself, the world, or other people. They can hold you back from reaching your full potential, experiencing new opportunities, and achieving your goals. Now, some specific limiting beliefs that people who are introverts have are, I'm not good at talking to people. Now, this limiting belief may stem from the assumption that extroverts are naturally better at socializing, that introverts are doomed to be awkward or boring, which is false. All right, I hate networking. This belief may come from the dislike of superficial or forced interactions or the fear of being judged or rejected by others. I can't be a leader because I'm an introvert. I can't be a leader. This belief may result from the misconception that leaders have to be charismatic, outgoing, and dominant. Another belief, I'm boring or uninteresting because I'm quiet and don't like small talk. I'm not good enough or smart enough because I don't have many achievements or accolades. I'm missing out on life or opportunities because I prefer to stay home or have alone time. And I'm not likable or relatable because I have different interests or values than most people. Now, these limiting beliefs can impact the success of introverts by making them feel insecure, inadequate, or isolated. They can also prevent them from pursuing their dreams, expressing their creativity, or connecting with others. These beliefs can also affect their mental health, causing them to experience anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem. So if you're an introvert yourself, what limiting beliefs do you have? Make sure you're sharing that in the comment section because this is such an important podcast, and so many people, they think just because they're not an extrovert that somehow there's something wrong with them, or it just impacts their confidence, and it shouldn't be that way. So if you are an introvert, if that's what your temperament is, what limiting beliefs do you have about yourself? Make sure you're sharing. Again, when we share in our community, it helps us to realize that, hey, there are other people that are just like me. All right, so now that you understand the limiting beliefs, how do you coach people who are introverts? Limiting beliefs can inform a coach or help you, if you're a coach, to understand how to coach people who are introverts, because it reveals the underlying fears, their doubts, assumptions that prevent them from expressing themselves, taking action, or pursuing their passions. If you are a coach, consultant, team lead, manager, you can help introverts overcome their limiting beliefs by challenging them, providing evidence, offering alternative perspectives, and encouraging them to step into a comfort zone where they are using the best of all of their abilities and not comparing themselves to people who are extroverts. Comparison will definitely shut them down. It's just about helping them to embrace the best of who they are. So here are 5 coaching questions that you can use to help people who are introverts. Remember, it's not about helping them to change. They don't have to change. They just have to feel exceptional about who they are and embrace that. So the first question, what are the benefits of being an introvert? Remember, we talked about the confidence, we talked about the myths, and now that you know all of this, you can really guide people who are introverts to embrace it. What are the benefits of being an introvert? Question 2, how do you use your introverted strengths to your advantage? What are some of the strengths, and how do you use that to your advantage? Really getting them to talk about it. And instead of them focusing on the limiting beliefs and the negative script that they have related to being an introvert, helping them to see that this is amazing. Let's have a new script. Let's start having a new narrative with regards to being an introvert. All right, question 3. What are the challenges of being an introvert, and how do you cope with them? Because remember, you also want to acknowledge that there might be some challenges that they are experiencing, and you want to find out what their coping strategies are, in particular the defense mechanisms that they use to protect themselves. All right, so making sure that they are getting that out and getting it out on the table so that everyone understands. Question 4, how do you balance your need for solitude and recharging with your need for connection and interaction? Because we're humans and we need to connect and interact. We just don't need to be with 100 people all of the time. And that's where introverts, of course they want to connect and interact, but they prefer just having a few people. And it's about helping them to communicate that instead of always making excuses or feeling bad or shameful or guilty for not always wanting to go to the big parties with 100 people or the big functions with 100 people. It's about helping them to just balance and realize, hey, it's okay. Let's talk about this. And that last question is, how do you communicate your thoughts, feelings, and needs to others in a way so that you're not defensive, in a way so that you're not always coming from that place that you are wrong for being an introvert? And this is something where you have to be able to help people who have this temperament to stop being defensive about it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Let's embrace it, but giving them tools and strategies for communicating their thoughts, feelings, and needs with others. All right, so those are 5 questions. Remember, I've got 5 more specific and powerful questions that you can use to help coach introverts. And keep listening, because I'm going to share with you where you can download that free PDF document. No email address is required.
Well, that's a wrap for this podcast. Hopefully you've been sharing your experience in the comments section. I want to hear from you. You bring with you so much valuable insight. And if this podcast, what you've been listening to, if it resonated with you, make sure you give it a thumbs up as well. Share with people who can benefit from it. If you are not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so you're notified when the next podcast drops. I am your podcast host, Louise and Maurice, and I appreciate that you've spent your valuable time with me. As promised, I'm going to share with you where you can find the valuable PDF document with the rest of the coaching questions on it.
You want to go to my website, louiseandmaurice.com, and you want to click on free or hover your mouse over free, and you see all of these resources that I have for you: free coaching training, coaching questions, empowered mindset. The last one, What Should I Do?, which was the Empowered Prevention series, and now Coaching Podcast. You want to click on Coaching Podcast, and that will take you to the free resources associated with season 1 of the Coaching Podcast.